Hello, my name is Vinny Thamba, and I'm a third-year medical student at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and a member of the HEAL team. And HEAL stands for Hypertension, Education and Lifestyle Modifications. And together with Dr. Lillian Saro-Nunez, who's a board-certified nephrologist at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, we're collaborating with the East Brunswick Public Library to deliver a series of modules, resources, and presentations to the East Brunswick community and the greater Middlesex and New Jersey communities as well. This video is the second video of our YouTube series. The first video introduced hypertension, introduced just themes around high blood pressure, and introduced the structure of our program. And you can watch the video in this playlist. The second video is titled Sodium and Diet, Changing What You Eat to Improve High Blood Pressure. And this video is presented on February 5th, 2022 originally. So let's dive right in. So first, the table of contents. This is what we'll be covering in this brief video. First, what is sodium? How does sodium affect hypertension? What can we do about high sodium? And what foods should I eat? So let's just start from the basics. For the purpose of this presentation, salt equals sodium. And you might see the word sodium all over your labs when you get them from the physician, or you might see them on physician posters in the office. Just know most of the time salt is sodium. And this will become important in our future discussions. So first, talking about the sources of sodium. 90% of American adults eat too much sodium, more than doubling the recommended intake. And 44% of sodium comes from 10 foods in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And some of these foods include breads and rolls you might get at like a grocery store, pizza, poultry, processed snacks, cheese, sandwiches, pasta dishes, meat dishes. And the common theme in all these foods is that no matter who you are, most likely you have one of these foods in your diet at all times. They're very common foods that you get not only in fast food and restaurant locations, but also foods that you buy at the grocery store. So it's very easy to add salt into your diet quickly. And this is really shown in the top right-hand figure by the American Heart Association. As you can see in these two salt shakers, the one on the left shows how much salt an average adult is getting. And in that figure, it shows 3,400 milligrams. But the recommended intake is less than half of that value at 1,500 milligrams. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, this figure by the CDC shows where the sodium is coming from. And I just wanted to direct you with this arrow to the left-hand side of that graph, which shows that 71% of sodium is already in processed foods and restaurant foods. So no matter what kinds of preparation you might do at home, or naturally occurring sodium, or sodium out at the table, it's important to recognize that a lot of this is coming from pre-prepared foods. And that's why it's especially important that when you're shopping for snacks, or you're at a restaurant, or you're at a fast food location, to be requesting that nutritional info or reading those nutritional labels very carefully when you're trying to manage sodium. Now, we talked about some of these themes about blood pressure in a previous module, but we just want to touch upon them one more time. So first, what is blood pressure? When the heart pumps blood through the arteries, the blood puts pressure on the artery walls, and this is known as blood pressure. When that pressure on the artery walls becomes too high, we then get high blood pressure or hypertension. And when we have chronic, uncontrolled hypertension, we could then unfortunately see damage across the body. So at the heart, at the kidney, at the brain, and even system-wide, including vision impairment, sexual dysfunction, or even a hypertensive crisis. And we don't share this information to scare you or make you afraid, but we share this to just establish some context to the presentation. And our program is here to help you navigate hypertension and really give you strategies so we can confront this problem directly together. So now getting more specific into the sodium conversation. How does sodium impact hypertension? So as we saw in the previous slide, sodium is in so many of the foods we eat. And as you take in sodium, your body holds onto more water than usual. And because of that, the blood pressure increases and more stress is put on your heart and your blood vessels. And when you're having that much extra blood pressure, it then can cause the damage to other body systems and some body functions, as we saw in the figure in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So now, just one interactive piece on this slide. Where in your diet do you think you can cut sodium? And you can just pause the screen if you would like. You can think back to some of the options you saw on some previous slides. And now let's talk about what we can do about high sodium. And I had briefly referenced this earlier, looking at nutrition labels and requesting nutritional info. And we'll start in the top hand side table. So you might have seen some of these labels in processed foods or at the grocery store. Salt sodium free, or low sodium, or no salt added or unsalted. All of these, although they sound very similar, mean very different things. And it's important to recognize what the differences between these terms are. I won't read through every single one directly one by one, but I just wanted to leave this table here for your reference, and this can be accessed even after this video is completed. Next, I wanted to bring you to the lower half of the screen, where I placed two nutrition labels with the sodium values highlighted in yellow for you. Nutrition labels don't typically look like this, but we just wanted to really emphasize just the sodium content and talk about that directly. So my first question to you is on the nutrition label on the left-hand side, where the product had 6 servings per container and the serving size was 1 serving. Can you tell me how much sodium in milligrams is in the package in total? And you can pause the screen at this time. So the answer here is, in this entire package, there's actually 4,200 milligrams of sodium. And that's because the serving size is 1 serving, and 1 serving has 700 milligrams. But there are 6 servings per container. And 6 times 700 is 4,200. So as you can see, if a person ate that entire product themselves, they would be way exceeding the average sodium intake that is recommended. Now, if we go to the right-hand side, in this case, there's 3.5 servings per container, and the serving size is half a cup. You can pause the screen at this time too. What is the total sodium content of this package? So, the answer here is a serving size is a half cup. There's 25 milligrams of sodium in each serving size, and in total there are approximately 75 to 100 milligrams of sodium in this package. And how I did this was I saw that one serving size would give you 25 milligrams of sodium, and there are 3.5 servings per container. So technically this comes out to 87.5 milligrams of sodium, but I rounded, so I used either 3 servings per container or 4 servings per container and multiplied that by 25 milligrams. So you can always pull out your calculator in the store or once you get home, but these are some calculations that you can do to better understand the sodium you might be getting in your diet. So again, let's think about what we can do about high sodium. In addition to reading those nutrition labels, we can think about how we prepare food. So trying to make your own meals when possible. As we saw in the figure by the CDC, 71% of your sodium is actually coming from pre-made foods or restaurant foods or processed foods or fast foods. So making your own meals could be a great solution if you have the time. Adding flavor without adding sodium. So there's no salt seasoning available, herbs, spices, can still allow you to have that enjoyment with your food without adding too much sodium to your diet. Limiting canned foods or processed foods in your meals. A lot of canned foods do come prepackaged with a lot of sodium. And now you'll be able to read exactly what is on the label for those canned foods. And you can always reference the slide right before to do that. Rinsing canned foods before eating could be a good strategy too. as this removes some of the sodium and you can still use the canned food for your cooking purposes. And finally, considering your condiment use. So although condiments a lot of times are low calorie and seem like they could be great for those who are trying to lose weight or have a certain diet, a lot of condiments are actually high in sodium. And I think an important example of this is mustard. A lot of mustards are very high in sodium and are used frequently. So with that being said, we can still eat the things we love as long as we more carefully consider what types of ingredients we're using. So the purpose of this slide is we have a pizza at the top, and on the bottom we have an Indian dish called chicken tikka masala with garlic naan. And you can pause the screen at this time if you want, but my question to you is how can we make these foods a little less heavy in sodium by changing the ingredients we use? So I'll start with the pizza. We can use fresh vegetables rather than canned vegetables because, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of times canned vegetables are high in sodium when they're packaged. We can use low sodium, low fat mozzarella cheese instead of the regular mozzarella cheese you might buy at a grocery store. Salt-free Italian seasoning, and considering low sodium pizza sauce or creating your own sauce. Now, with the food choice on the bottom, chicken tikka masala with garlic naan, we can use no salt added tomato paste, no salt added crushed tomatoes, rinsing our canned ingredients again, and using fresh roti from the supermarket rather than frozen naan. And again, these prepackaged foods and processed foods like the frozen naans can add a lot of sodium into your diet. So I hope this was a helpful exercise, but this can really be done with any food in your week or your month or any foods you're trying to create in the future. There's always ways to think about how you can substitute certain ingredients and still preserve the taste that you want. And next up, we wanted to go into the DASH diet. And you might have seen the DASH diet in your physician office, or you might have read about the DASH diet online, and it's a very popular diet, a very scientifically tested diet to stop hypertension. And it's important to note that the DASH diet is not just a low sodium diet. It also emphasizes foods that have the minerals and nutrients needed to help regulate blood pressure. These include vegetables, low-fat dairy, low-sodium condiments, seasonings and spreads, whole grains, lean meats, poultry and fish, and fruits. And this image on the left-hand side, I think, represents the DASH diet really well. And I just wanted to add in that when you're on the DASH diet, that doesn't mean you can't have fast food anymore. That doesn't mean you can't eat sweets or foods that might have been high sodium that you really enjoyed. It just means that maybe now you might have to eat those foods in moderation. So with that being said, and with all this information that you were given, how will you approach your diet moving forward? And this is a question I want to throw to you, the viewer. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation. You can contact this email address if you have any questions about this presentation or the structure of our program, presentations, or future modules. You can scan the QR code at the top of the screen if you want to go directly to our page and have access to not only our resources, but other resources from the American Heart Association, the CDC, and other medicine-based websites. And finally, please join us in person on March 5th, 2022, June 18th, 2022, and August 6th, 2022 for future workshops. And we'll hopefully be releasing the rest of our schedule for the coming year, 2022 to 2023, very shortly. Thank you for tuning in.